Hello and welcome to another edition of Inside the Burrow, the FAU podcast for and by fans. My name is Dan. I am joined by Jack and Shane as usual. And tonight we are going to go over the FAU versus Old Dominion game this weekend up in Norfolk. And FAU coming off a really heartbreaking loss against Marshall. And we really won't spend much time on that. If you care to hear our thoughts about the breakdown of that, check out last episode. And but FAU comes in as the favorite in this game, which why I shouldn't say. Old Dominion's only won one game. They're kind of struggling with quarterback play. They don't know who's going to play. They're not really averaging much on offense. This is Old Dominion's one of the few teams outside of FIU where FAU actually has a winning record. The series is 3-2 in FAU's favor. FAU having won the last two pretty convincingly. Last time we were up in Norfolk was when Jason Driscoll kind of ran crazy. I think he had 4 rushing touchdowns. Mulder had a bunch. It was a great that was a great game. So we're hoping for something similar to that. And yeah, I mean, there's not as much to really say about Old Dominion. I mean, us saying that, I think Lane kind of feels that way as well. He said something about, it doesn't matter who your opponent is, you still have to prepare the right way. So hopefully FAU, this isn't a letdown game. Hopefully it's more of a blow some steam off, kind of get back in the win column. So. I don't know, Shane. What do you have any? What are your thoughts on Old Dominions this year?
Well, I do want to say this going up there. Old Dominion has one of the better fan bases in Conference USA. They just did a $68 million renovation of their stadium. I went up there 2 years ago at the 5 running touchdown game up there, and their donor lots. Their fan base is one of the best ones. They pack that house every week. They have really good tradition there. They have great facilities on that campus. I'm glad, they expanded that football stadium. Their basketball facility is amazing up there. So it's kind of wondrous. And, there's decent recruiting in that area, Virginia Beach, Virginia. There's a lot of good high school football, and they can easily go down to North Carolina and you recruit in Atlanta. But they kind of came on the scene hot in FBS and had a couple good season. We were just talking about before the show that 10-3 season that they had just a couple years ago in 2016, but it's kind of faded off. They haven't recruited particularly well, and a lot of people think this is Bobby Wilder's last year. He's just been there forever. He's kind of debacled the quarterback situations that haven't developed. They had Steven Williams a couple years ago, who was like a 17-year-old freshman playing for him, and now he's playing receiver. I don't know who's we'll see the most of this week. We think Messiah DeWeaver will be the main quarterback. He started last week, but he went 6 of 24 and is completing 36% of his passes, which is unbelievably bad.
Great.
Yeah. Stone Smart, their other quarterback, who turns the ball over a little bit more, has played in every game. He's completed nearly 60%, but he has 5 picks and only 1 TD. I mean, they have 2 passing touchdowns on the year. 2.
Wow.
So, that their offense is a disaster. It's kind of a nice rebound game. FAU's seen plenty of good offenses and great running backs in UCF and Ohio State. Some of our defensive stats are maybe a little off because of that. I was kind of digging through stats before the game, and our total defense is kind of down there right now in Conference USA. But, just some things that are looking up for FAU. We have the highest turnover margin in the conference. We're +8. We've already surpassed the amount of sacks we had last year, so it's we could see kind of between the lines where we're getting better. It's kind of that bend don't break and force turnover style. So hopefully I'd like to see this week though is a defensive touchdown, because we've not had a defensive touchdown. I think since the Bethune-Cookman, right? I think the Chris Tooley fumble recovery against Bethune-Cookman was the last
Yeah.
That's a touchdown we've had. Jack, do you off the top of your head? Because that's the one I remember.
That's the only one I can really think of. Right now, we were close a couple times, especially with some interceptions. That being said, I'm right on board with you guys with this week. Let's take out some of the anger from the Marshall game out on a pretty lowly Old Dominion team. This team reminds me a lot of FAU in 2011. Quarterback issues. Kind of both quarterbacks have been playing a little bit smart, like you mentioned, Shane. Decent percentage, but he can't throw any. He keeps throwing picks.
Could David Cooey start for this team?
Oh God, I don't.
Or Steven.
Right, could he or Stephen Curtis? Greg, who knows, man? And maybe the Monarchs have lost 6 straight. Their losses are getting worse and worse. They lost to UAB 14-38 last week on the road. But they lost to Western Kentucky by 17. They lost to Marshall on the road by 21, and then lost to UAB in Birmingham by 24.
And they somehow almost beat Virginia Tech.
Well, but Virginia Tech is one of the worst P5 teams.
I know. I'm just saying that's
like
tradition for them at this point.
Miami won a cookie. You know what I mean? Like good for Central Michigan almost beating Miami. It's not saying anything.
They beat Virginia Tech last year, and we destroyed them. I mean, they seem to have that instinct.
Oh no.
Well, I will say it's kind of looking, into ODUs. They do not give up a lot of big plays on defense.
No.
So it's one of those things where our offense is – I think there's almost a good challenge for our offense in a way where we're going to have to maybe kind of do the long drives, not just depend on big plays in this game because they just don't give it up. So, this is a good game to kind of really get the running game going. Chris is going to have to complete a high percentage of passes and not turn them over, not let them hang around. Because when a team has a good defense, anyone can stick around and then you get in a game. Lane did say today they practice poorly. He was quoted saying it felt like the team was practicing like they looked at their ODU's record. And it's kind of why I said I wish Western Kentucky was this week. So it's like, sometimes after a loss, it's like, especially a tough loss, it's like you got to quickly focus. Like, just get back. Your next big opponent's coming. There's no time. It's just easier to have the tougher opponent on the road and kind of rebound for that than kind of go up there and sleepwalk through a game.
And let's mention this, that Bobby Wouter is probably coaching for his job right now.
His job's done.
Well, let's see. See how it is. It definitely seems like he knows he's on the hot seat. He had a quote this week. I have it here. When he's saying this, he's talking about both the players, the fans, and the administration. He said they deserve better results. That's my job. I have to give it to him. It sounds like a coach that knows that he's coaching for his career. It also is a homecoming game up for Old Dominion as well. So we know sometimes that's tricky because, Shane, you said it, they do have one of the best fan bases. They do have that beautifully renovated stadium that they have up there. So they could be up for this game. They had a players meeting right after the Old Dominion, or right after the UAB loss. And it seems like that has actually motivated the players a bit more to practice the level they're supposed to. So maybe they're getting some belief back into the program again. But, I mean, that being said, as good as their defense is, I think it's – and we've talked about this beforehand, guys. I think it's mainly because they really haven't played a good offense yet. The best offense they played is either Western Kentucky or Virginia. I mean, they didn't play an Ohio State or UCF style of offense, that's for sure. Their offense is awful. I have the stats right here, guys. Dead last total offense in all of FBS football, 130th. Worse than Rutgers, worse than Rice, worse than UTS State, New Mexico State, so on and so forth. They average 3.79 yards per play, also dead last. They're the only team in the entire nation to average less than 4 yards per play. 125th in first down offense, 123rd in third down conversions, 112th in completion percentages. They don't have a running back. They do running back by committee. Last week against UAB, granted, solid defense up there in Birmingham. they only had one player rush for more than like 3.5 yards, and he only had 2 carries. So it definitely reminds me of 2011 because you look at this offense and you're thinking, where is the spark going to come from? Where is this long play that you need to turn the game around, turn the season around, going to come from? And you just don't see it anywhere on this roster for Old Dominion.
Yeah, so suffice it to say, FAU should win this game handily. And the opening line was like 16 and a half, I think. Again, this should be a game that hopefully FAU doesn't play down to the competition. There's, I don't think that will be a problem. And it would be nice to get the running game going a little bit. I think I wouldn't be surprised if there's more runs just because of how Lane critiqued Chris pretty tough. I imagine that carried over into practice to, when it's a run-pass option, one of the options is to run and not, as Lane said, stand back there and get sacked. So I think we'll see a pretty solid rushing attack.
Well, we'll see. I don't know really what the health Larry McCammon is this week. Davidson, I just noticed one little thing on the depth chart. Davidson officially passed him. So, which I think he's deserved it play-wise over the week because, Larry's just been hurt. So,
yeah,
FAU's just kind of, again, really down running backs. They can't seem to get everyone healthy, and it's just kind of a pile of little injuries. So, we'll see. This could be, a day where we need Malcolm to carry it 25 times.
And that might happen because this could be one of those games where you mentioned we're not going to be able to get a lot of big plays against this defense. I don't think our defense is going to be on the field for extended periods of time. Therefore, the offense is going to have to drive. And if Malcolm Davidson is taking 25 carries, eventually he's going to need a break. And, we're going to have to find the next man up. Lane Kiffin, coach, he's not too chatty about the injuries. I mean, I get it. He doesn't have to be. But we just don't know what to expect if, God forbid, Davidson, who's not, the strongest player on the depth chart, goes down. So we'll see what happens if that situation arises. Does Larry come in and begin to play some more, or do we see the return of James Charles? I mean, the Tyreek Tisdale, maybe? We don't know.
Yeah. We'll see. But like I said, and as we've really been saying, this is a game that FAU should handle. There is some recruiting news, and Shane will give a little bit about that. But on the recruitment staff side of things, FAU had a coach, defensive line coach Lance Thompson, was sanctioned not for something at FAU, but actually he was at South Carolina last year with Will Muschamp and committed some recruiting violations. He's basically not allowed to recruit off campus. Not the biggest loss in the world. I'm sure he's a good recruiter, but that's just kind of keep that in mind that there is some recruiting news. But Shane, what is some of the things that have been going on in the recruitment world?
Well, just regarding Lance, it was, Lane said today he didn't expect the sanctions to be so stiff. Him getting this penalty for just the fall isn't the end of the world. Right now, FAU has 7 committed right now, to their 2020 class. And I think in the early signing period, they're going to probably take 10 to 12 mostly, and most of them will be an early enrollees. So I think you guys can kind of see just from when I'm speaking to a lot of the commits, they'll be early enrollees. So, and I just I'm going to get my facts straight and make sure I understand exactly what he can do, especially when the season's over, before that early signing period and the December period when coaches can hit the road. If he's just going to be limited to visits, because typically coaches hit the road during the week and then all the visitors come here. I think FAU has a lot of its they're filling a lot of spots for those kind of December visits. And as we kind of get in that month and I have more freedom in the day, you'll start seeing a lot more stories kind of pumping out. But, just overall with FAU recruiting news, they're doing really well. There's some kids, that I know about that are coming that I can't really say anything yet. They definitely have looking for certain type of players. I think one interesting thing, just with the 2 O-linemen they have committed this year so far, Malik Jones, from the Tampa area, and Andre Lamas, who's from Columbus. Both kids are from really well-coached offensive line schools. And we kind of talk about that on the forum, how hard it is in this state, and how pretty much even Florida is in the top 10 has had their O-line issues. It's a tough state to recruit O-line just because the coaching just isn't there. So they're going for kids that you could just tell by their school they're really well coached. And another thing, FAU is really looking to get some serious speed back, especially in the receiving core. So Justin McKitson, the receiver from Georgia that committed over the summer, the kid can fly, track star. So look for more of those type of commits. And I wrote a piece on it a couple weeks ago about JUCO. There will be some JUCO guys. They're going to need to fill them on the D line, build depth on the O line, and possibly even corner. So, that's kind of where we are. But again, expect FAU to have a larger December class.
Yeah, I just want all of our fans to know that you guys can follow along with Shane's phenomenal recruiting coverage. He does a recruiting roundup about every Thursday or Friday. He's working his tail off, going to so many schools in South Florida. I went to one game, Armwood High School over here in Tampa, and I was exhausted by halftime. So I don't even know how you do it, man, going to game after game down there.
It's tough. You
show up and there's no air conditioning.
Awesome is like one of the Frank Gore Jr., is going to be a phenomenal player. I mean, I got a few videos of him, and God, he looks like I hate saying this, but man, he runs like motor in so many ways. I got a video of him jump cutting into the end zone, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of, just the size and the way they're built. But you got to get a like 2 good touchdown videos, you got to film every single play. So I don't even watch most of the game. I'm filming mostly every single play. Like this weekend, I'm going to probably be at Cardinal Gibbons. If he has a couple big targets there, a couple kids they're going to try and flip in a couple. But, I'll add this too. FAU is going after some big names. They're trying to keep some kids that we've talked about on the forum before, and I think in the past, that kids that are committed to Iowa State and Syracuse and kind of the Marylands and the Indianas of the world, and they're really going for those kids and keeping them in state. They're kind of fighting for a next level athlete. It's difficult here. It's hard to find a player under a rock in Florida without, that doesn't have 5 offers already. So
right.
I can tell you they're working their tail off in recruiter. I think the whole thing with Lance, you have one less guy possibly out there. His violation was 13 text messages during a non-contact period. We're not talking like we go back to what happened with Chris Kiffin. He let a recruit sleep on his couch that didn't have a place to stay. I think is ultimately, if you read some of these violations, you're just like, this is kind of ridiculous, NCAA. And, everyone kind of walks the line with these rules, and a lot of times the players themselves in high school have trouble even keeping up with them. So, we'll see how it turns out. But FAU is gonna, I think, it ultimately is going to have another top 3 Conference USA class.
And I think that's becoming expected. Even when Charlie Partridge was the head coach, that was something that was expected. Just with our stadium alone, now we get the facilities that we expect to have coming up this winter. And the style of coach that we have, and top 3, not even top 2 is what we're expecting here now.
I've got to see, and just from what I've seen, and you get to, and this is kind of my first year doing this, I've got to see about half the kids committed play and meet them in person, and I hope to eventually by the end of FAU's class where I can look back and see I've seen half these kids play, whether it's in a 7-on-7 tournament 6-7 months ago or, at a high school game. And I know this sounds like a cliche thing to say, but they are quality kids. There's even a couple names out there who probably can commit in December that I can't say yet, but I went and saw them, and they're quality kids. They're leaders on their teams. Andre Lamas he's going to be a stud lineman here, and we're going to look back on his career kind of like we do an Antonio Woods or a Brandon Walton or a Reggie Bain now. The kid they got from Columbus last year, that Federico, they're picking up a couple all linemen. There's a kid coming next year, Ryan Rodriguez, 2021, FAU's offered. So, they're building kind of a pipeline with the line. The Malik Jones, offensive lineman, state championship wrestler. I talked to him and his dad, and it's like, wow, we're getting this kid. This kid's going to be like amazing, locker room. Frank Gore Jr. is a, great kid. And I'm just talking about the kids I've met. So you could just tell the type of player they're going for. And you're like, man, keep stacking classes like this. You turn around in a few years, it can be really special. And I think also people forget, Anthony Romp, the quarterback from Detroit that committed way in the beginning, is just, all aboard. He's going to be here in January. More and more of these kids are enrolling early, which I think we'll see more kids start to play as freshmen.
That never really, enrolling early never really used to be a thing.
FAU only had 3 this year. I expect in the spring, I think when the dust settles, FAU might have 7 or 8. That's just me kind of, I'd have to look at it, but I think and as as the staff is here longer and they're building relationships, and now FAU looking at kids on their staff that they've been recruiting for possibly 2 full years now and have a better idea of grades. A lot of times when a staff gets here, they're just trying to get whatever kids they can. So expect that number to grow, it's part of in college football now. You have to get kids to enroll early. I mean, because you need freshmen to play, because we've talked about the portal. You're losing more kids. Lane said in the fall we had 73 scholarship players. Now they use those scholarship on walk-ons, but you're losing more than you're gaining. So you need freshmen to be more ready to be available to play as scholarship players.
Yeah.
I do want to mention real quick, going back to Lance Thompson, who is rated as one of the best recruiters in the nation by ESPN and Rivals. He does have to serve a suspension for 1 game. Well,
he already has. He already served his suspension.
Did he really?
The Wagner game.
The Wagner game.
Oh, makes sense then. Good. I was gonna say I'm not sure if he served it or not, but we're good, guys. All right, we're set.
Yeah. So
he's still allowed to have contact with players if they're on campus as well, by the way.
All right. Well, thanks for the update on recruiting, and definitely stay tuned to the Owl's Nest for more recruiting as the year goes on. And I think that will about do it for us. Again, the games this weekend, this Saturday, 3:30 start time, I believe, at ESPN Plus. And Jack, you had something you want to say?
I just want to say that basketball season is here. I know we're mainly a football podcast, but I love college basketball. College basketball season begins this Friday against Lynn. It's going to be a free game for everyone that wants to head out to the Burrow. Hey, FAU's a basketball school, guys. We're back at it. It's going to be a good game, and then we're off to play Flagler on November 5th. So it's going to be a really good season. The team is projected to do really well. Stay tuned for a lot of great content in Owl's Nest regarding the basketball season. I'm not sure about y'all. I think it's the best time of the entire year when you have football and basketball at the same time. It's a lot of good stuff is going on.
Jalen Ingram's back.
That the most of the games that FAU is playing, the conference games anyway, are on ESPN Plus this year. So that's, if anybody tried to watch Conference USA, or whatever network that was last year and past couple of years, it's been a pain. So that should certainly help us there. So so hopefully this is a chance for the guys to get back in the win column, get closer to the ever desirable 6 wins, And like we said last week, the loss to Marshall is not the end of the season. It's not the end of the chase for Conference USA. Make sure that you watch the Marshall Western Kentucky game this weekend, because that kind of has some major implications for our seasons, and they normally tend to be pretty good games. So if you like college football and Conference USA, you'll want to tune into that one. And make sure you check us out at Inside the Burrow and on Twitter and all of your favorite podcasting apps, YouTube, and as always at theowlsnest.com. So we thank you again for joining us, and we will see you later on this week. Go Owls!